Peace and cheers. You got gourd, you're hurting hippie with Weedy Weekend number 80. 80 weeks this has been going. It's been going for 82 weeks, but I've missed two. I've missed two in those 80 weeks. Almost missed today, my friends. This house, we've got a sick house. Every one of us has a little bit of some kind of winter cold or flu, stomach bug, bad nasal, bad throat, just tough weekend. Got my little boy really sick. He's really bad. The rest of us just have a little bit of it, and hopefully it stays that way. But I've got my little boy for a couple more days because he's not going to be able to go to school. He can't even go home. It's cold spells hitting. He's just going to stay here. So, Weedy Weekend, number 80. And yeah, a different angle. I'm trying a different angle on the camera, but I'm going to have a difficult time because it used to be right beside the screen. Now, if I'm looking at the screen or reading something here, I'm not looking at you. So, please report back. What do you think? Now for the first story, and this is a weedless one. This is a weedless weekend because my son's out there. He doesn't need this in the air. I'm going outside in this minus much weather. It's going to be minus 20 average all week long. And it is snowing to beat the band. It's a blizzard out there. But that's where I will be taking my medicine, is out there and in my garage. Not in this house where my son is. Just putting that out there for those of you who tend to wonder. Story number one. It's a celebrity story. I'm bringing you some celebrity news. Trailer Park Boys sign with marijuana producer to create their own brand. Yeah. I mean marketing. People are going to get into this. We're going to see more and more celebrities wanting their own brand of marijuana, especially as it's becoming recreational. This is an aim not at the medical market like Snoop Dogg did with Tweed. Here, these people are working towards a product that will be ready for the recreational market in 2018, if that even comes of fruition. We'll get back to that another time. But this is quite an interesting story. I'll read this part of it. This relationship solidifies one of our strategic building blocks as we plan for the legalization of recreational use in Canada. The team at Trailer Park Boys have an aligned vision to develop a national brand with our assistance, and we're incredibly excited at how the partnership will come to life. And that is Organigram, who is the one that's going to develop the strain that will be Trailer Park Boys. They haven't decided on the exact name or anything else yet, but they do talk about that they are going to tie it, regardless what some of us may think, to their brand of whiskey. There is a link on here in the Read More section that says Trailer Park Boys inspired whiskey drinks involving marijuana look dangerous. And all it is they put out a bunch of recipes with their alcohol that they release, their whiskey. And one of them calls to roll a 6-paper joint and then have a shot of whiskey. Yes, I agree. Mixing is not a good thing, but doesn't mean we gotta stop everybody from mixing. People will do what they gotta do, and we gotta stop babysitting the public. Warning, this sign has sharp edges. Let's stop putting out the sign. Nobody gets cut on the edges. So that's the Trailer Park Boys. That's kind of neat, kind of interesting. I know a few of you really like these guys. They do represent a bit of what Canadiana is all about. So I'm all for them, and I would cheers this if I was going to cheers. I'll cheers outside after this is all done. The next story. This is kind of neat, right from my area. This small Alberta village could soon be home to the world's largest marijuana factory. It's already home to Alberta's largest, but it's about to undergo, unless the locals have a say, and they're not going to have a say. Aurora Cannabis has their greenhouse in a place called Cremona, Alberta. I've been there. It is so tiny. It's got 475 people. It's a tiny, tiny town. But right at the town is a great big factory that they've converted into a greenhouse for marijuana, and they do plan to convert it much, much larger. The local residents, some of them up in arms, because they said when they agreed to the facility going there, there was agreement there would never be expansion. Anybody who thinks that when a cannabis greenhouse comes to your town that it will never get bigger when this market has just begun, silly. It's going to get bigger. 475 locals cannot stop a huge place like Aurora. Aurora, if you read more into this, and I'll let you read, they got some pictures of the current place inside there. Aurora is rather large in Canada, and they have plans that by 2018, when Canada becomes fully functional legally, to be the largest. They want to be the largest. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I say cheers to them. I'd love to see more in Alberta. Alberta has to open up. We are so conservative and so straight-laced and stick up our ass that we don't allow a lot of this. We only have one place to smoke any of this medicine in all of Calgary. It's ridiculous. Let's move on. Let's move on. The next one is a marijuana report that has been given to the Liberals, and I've had a lot of discussion all week on this. The report asked for by the Liberals has been given to the Liberals, is not fully released yet because it hasn't been translated into French yet. But I'll read this part. To eat into the black market, the report is expected to recommend prices should be lower than street prices of $8 to $10 a gram. This would reduce the amount of tax revenues available to federal and provincial governments, but would be justified by the principle of guaranteeing a safe and controlled supply. This really goes in depth. It's a great read. I do encourage you to read it. I really do. It goes really in depth as to how they've dug in and seen that no matter what you do in Canada, if your aim is not to reduce, if your aim is to reduce and or decimate the black market supply, then they have to be taking not only these recommendations of a low price and low tax, but other recommendations and orders by our government, by our courts, to open up the market. If the market is open, a low price is not too hard to maintain. But if you close down the market, regulate it tough, most suppliers, even huge ones, are not going to be able to maintain a low price for very long. And what does that do? Creep in the gray market, creep in the black market, or never even cause a dent. They need to incorporate gray into the regular market. Then they can get rid of black market. I had a discussion with one of my followers saying that dispensaries are black market. Gray market is black market. They're just a storefront instead of a guy doing it out of his truck. I disagree. A dispensary, most of the dispensaries, not all, there are some true black market dispensaries that have snuck into places. But most of the good, solid, strong dispensaries like the one I'm dealing with, MMJ Total Healthcare, are 100% aligned with the rules and regulations except for the type of medicine, because they've expanded, because they're patient driven. Currently, our legal market is not patient driven. It's a little bit consumer driven and a whole lot profit driven. The medical supply needs to be patient driven. We need dispensaries. I went off topic. Peace and cheers. The Liberals promised to legalize pot in their election platform as a public safety issue, to keep marijuana out of the hands of children and to cut off profits to organized crime. So if that's what they want to do, you have to have, yes, a regulated, but an open market to keep the competition there, for the monopolies to keep their prices low. The only other thing a government could do is a fixed price, and anybody who has their nose in economics, a fixed price will decimate it. Pretty soon they'll be raising taxes to pay for to subsidize to get it out on the street. So no, that is not that part of it. The next one goes right along the same lines. The very next story, which I'll attach below, is about a marijuana task force submitting a report outlining the framework for the legal system. This report is even more in depth, but along the same lines. So the Liberals, no matter what they do, if they come forward without incorporating these ideas, they're going to have a hard time with the public, because all the feedback they're getting is all pointing in one direction. I'll read this. Per part of the report, at the same time, the federal government will face pressure to break the grasp of corporate cannabis over the recreational market. I think that really needs to be opened, said Eric Nash, a BC-based consultant in the marijuana industry. A diverse cannabis industry is essential for legalization to be a success. So this next story further reiterates what I've been pleading for, is an open market, opened up to allow a diverse cannabis culture. We are a diverse nation. We need to continue with our own identity, and that needs to be incorporated into this. I sure hope it does get. I have guarded optimism. Let's put it that way. Next story, we're 12 minutes in. The next story is a really good one, along the lines of Weedy Weekend 79, where I talked at length about fibromyalgia, fog. My fog's getting to me. And using CBD for the brain. This is a story from Herb that talks about how cannabis can help with the mental health industry. And I love this angle. Listen to this. The results show that alcohol and opioid pain medication are two major drugs of abuse that are often replaced with cannabis, which has a higher safety margin. Though swapping one substance for another might make some critic wary, some of you might say, oh, they're just changing, addicted to opioids, addicted to marijuana. The reviews findings hint that the therapeutic cannabis seems to fit well into a harms reduction approach to addiction. The study authors concluded that, quote, with regard to assessment, evidence suggests that cannabis for therapeutic purpose, CTP, use does not increase the risk of harm or self to or others. So what it's saying is, by people who are hurting themselves or others under alcohol or opioid addiction, they switch over to marijuana. Yes, they may continue that addiction, because addiction is about your environment, not the drug of use. The drug of use is just what happens to be out there. So if we can't change the environment for that person, and that person is going to remain addicted, we can give them a much safer thing to be addicted to, that will cause less public safety damage and less personal damage. Or none. Along that line, remember what I said. Addiction is environmentally induced. The product you get addicted to is not to blame. It's your environment. We have addictions because our environments are messed up, and we need something to get us through it. Fix that. You change the need from need to just maybe a desire, or maybe even not a desire anymore. I could go on for hours about addiction. And the final story, a medical thing, something very close to my heart, because my dad suffers from it terribly. I suffer from it tiny bit, yet we're so much the same. Reason why? I use cannabis. And what am I talking about? Gout. Gout is an awful, awful, debilitating thing. I remember times, and this study points it out, times when just the sheets of the bed were too heavy to lay on my feet because my toes hurt so badly. Just a touch, even just the blankets. Gout can be horribly painful. It's driven from many of the foods we eat and the way we live our lives. I have mainly reduced my situations of gout by not eating much red meat at all, staying away from some of the things that really bother me. Cannabis, CBD, anti-inflammatories help huge, and a good eating habit. Let me read this. Cannabis has been used since antiquity to relieve inflammation, swelling in various parts of the body. There are little studies that have been done analyzing the effects of cannabis for gout sufferers, although the analgesic and anti-inflammatory properties of cannabis are well known. For those who want to use cannabis to relieve themselves of the pain and inflammation that comes with gout, it should be accompanied by a proper diet to address the cause of the condition. Medical cannabis can provide adequate pain relief so that patients no longer need to rely on addictive painkillers that can be addictive and may have side effects. Medical marijuana can be taken in almost any form to address gout pains. Topical ointments and balms, for sure. Edibles, yes, and the classically inhaled versions, all of which can provide significant relief. I wish I could point that out to my father. Significant relief from gout is huge, especially if you've ever suffered it. It can change your life. And I'll tell you, I'm going to end, because CBD is what's pointed at to help here. THC for the pain, but CBD to get rid of that inflammation and take away the base of the pain, and eat better. But one thing I want to mention is CBD. I have recently really come on the CBD train. Remember, CBD should always be accompanied by THC. But large amounts, like I've been taking 40 to 1 CBD pills, 2 a day, for quite a while, and it relieved almost completely my anxiety. I have been 4 or 5 days without. My anxiety is coming back. It's getting difficult. I have a few other sources of CBD, but they aren't as strong or long lasting. I have the CBD pills coming. I can't wait for them to come so I can get back on the regimen and feel a little better. So remember, people, if you have that anxiety, if you have that lack of focus in the brain, CBD, strong CBD with a slight bit of THC, you're going to fix it. So Weedy Weekend number 80, it's over. I did it. I really was going to put it off today, and then I realized, no, I got to keep, no more procrastination, get what needs done and get it out to all of you, because you're all sitting there waiting for it. Peace and cheers. Love and harmony.